Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. Another episode of Who Should You Choose, the video series where I go through the prior videos, questions, and comments and help you with your hut lineup decisions. Let's get into it. Again, subscribe with notifications on for your best chance to get your question answered. And please, when you're going through the comments to leave yours, if you see a comment that you're interested in as well, give it a like. I go through the top rated comments first, and then I go first come, first serve. I do want to address something first. For anyone that has been watching my No Money Spent series or my Who Should You Choose series for a while, I stress that it's usually about don't just post your entire team and whatnot about who would you go out and get and make it better. But I do want some more questions about what did you take this card over this card, as opposed to just kind of the rants. I do love just talking and what you're going through, but I do want to get back to a little bit more of, would you go with this card or this card? Because someone posted here, you can't see it in the thing. It says, Big Money said, I thought this was who should you choose? Not one comment asking that question. Who would you choose, Matthews or Lindros? After using both of them for about 10 to 15 games, Matthews is definitely better in my opinion than Lindros. However, Matthews was not exceptional. He was good. I would recommend going with Matthews base card if you really want a Matthews card, and going with a different cover athlete, more than likely one that comes out this Friday. Although if you haven't made Makar is safe. Makar's cover athlete card is unbelievable. So just want to get there. Make sure you guys, again, leave your questions and comments like you have been. But if you have, make sure that there's still some questions about your lineup now that we actually have some lineup questions, because there's a lot more cards that came out. That hat is absolute beauty. No other questions. One of the most top-rated comments on the video. Thank you so much. This hat is legit one of my favorites in my entire collection. I'm a big Ice Dogs fan. I'm on their media team. So I love this one personally. So let's talk about this one. I think a lot of people are overreacting and need to chill a bit. Everybody always say they want a slow progression, and this is what we have. We just got our first day of new content, and it's pretty easy to have a team of all 82 to 83 overall players, with a few 84s in there as well, with the highest card being an 86. I'd say that's fine. It's obviously a ripoff for people dropping big money, so just use your head if you're thinking about spending money. How is the best feeling gameplay being overshadowed, slower progression that hasn't really been fleshed out yet? I actually agree. I've been super negative, and so has the community, for good reason. I think that the content that just came out, the Game Breakers content, if you haven't seen what the new content was on Tuesdays, I did drop my first video. It's got the Charlie McAvoy cover thumbnail. I would break down all the newest content there. I think that was a win, and I think that that's a good start, and we need multiple wins. However, there is still a fundamental issue in the market. And I think it was an oversight by EA in terms of their XP path. And I think that they're going to have to play catch up. And it is fixable. We have said that a number of times. But the fact that all of the chase cards are legitimately not achievable is still a major issue. And it has really put a damper on the good gameplay, in my opinion, that we've gotten throughout the launch of the game. It has people, again, I don't think they're overreacting, because we got such a change. This is the game that we're most passionate about, obviously, if you're watching my channel. And it has really been subpar so far. So that being said, let's move on to the next one. Hey Sleeves, are you worried about fantasy hockey? I'm worried that the pay to win who get a bunch of fantasy cards will have a bunch of 90 plus cards early and dominate. The fix is make the cards start low, but this makes these cards useless for months. Either way, I see it a lose-lose happening for the average player. The fantasy, the comment below is, the fantasy was never for the average player. 100%. It is my favorite event, but it is not for the super casual player, which is why it is now being released in line with another event. So we're going to see, I think it's the spooky event or whatever it's called. The Halloween event is being released alongside it. So that's the way to do it. That being said, yeah, I'm worried about the fantasy event. I think that it's an incredible event. It's one of the best things that the content team has ever done. And it was Nicholas at EA who came up with it, I believe, in NHL 20 or 21. And it has been my favorite event since, because EA has no control over it. They release these things, and if someone pops off, you got a 99 before they ever intended to. I just love it. And not to mention, it promotes actually watching real hockey, which I feel like too many people that are addicted to HUT don't do. Love the event. We were talking about this in my morning stream today. An awesome idea for the fantasy event. It's always goals, right? Whether it's goals by forward or defenseman, and wins for a goaltender. What if they did something like Matt Rempe gets a fantasy card, and every time he gets 5 penalty minutes, it goes up a +2 or +1 overall, right? They can't promote fighting, so they can't be like every time he gets a fighting major, it goes up. So what an easy way would be is like anytime he gets over 5 penalty minutes. So if he gets three, minor penalties, 6 minutes, he goes up +1 or +2. You'd have to do the math on what he'd be rated. I think that'd be sick. You have Mitch Marner. You could have Mitch Marner. He doesn't score a lot of goals, but imagine he goes up 0.5 for every assist, something along those lines. I think that'd be a really cool take on the fantasy event where it's not just goals, because as we've seen, I think that the event has just become kind of stale in that aspect. It's still a great event, but I think that maybe freshening it up with other stats and having them go up would be so sick. Just really, really good. But it isn't for the casual player. Like the cost of a fantasy card is a 99 overall, but you're paying for it up front, right? So that's why we usually wait and say to wait until the end of the event, because usually there's a player that scores a couple goals and he's way high overall and he's got decent skating and can go in your lineup. So Teuvo Teravainen last year is a perfect example. He was like an 82 or 83, I think, during the event, but his skating was usable. And as long as their skating is usable at the time of the drop, then they're fine. But, if you can get a card that can't be in your lineup and you're paying, 800,000 coins in value, it's just very tough. We'll have to wait and see, but I am worried about it. Yep, I am worried about it. Do you think we'll get another round of cover athlete MSPs to build? It looks like the current buildable sets expired at the end of the event. I've given up on grinding this year and just want to build a Blues theme team, but didn't pick Tarasenko in my pre-order pack because I thought I would play Hut like years past. I'm worried to be missing out. No, there is going to be a second week, and you can go ahead and make Tarasenko. At this early in the game, do you think the fast defenseman is better, 88 plus in speed, a better defensive awareness, 88 plus and above, or being mid at both, 83, 86? Love the subathon. Thank you so much. Early access gameplay to me was so much fun, and I think that will. And then there was there is a lot more forces going through, and you're not able to bump anyone off the puck, and everyone thinks it's this tinfoil hat. There was a tuner. The game's different. We don't take into account how much attributes matter. So during early access, no one had a good team, but now even the casual player that has started and went out and bought all of the good base cards. So let's say you got base McDavid or base Matthews for like 80,000 coins, base Panarin, I'm talking about the cards that are not that aren't super good, but when you have a full lineup of them, they're far better than whatever you just thrown into your team. And I'm noticing that everyone has low defensive awareness. I hate Paul Coffey. His card was absolutely ass for me. And for other people, it's obviously going to be a different experience. But we call him Paul Decaf in my stream now. And I think I'm noticing so many forced cross creases because defensive awareness stats, we've all chosen the fastest ones because that's always been the most important. But the lack of defensive awareness is clearly being seen, which is why I actually think having a high defensive awareness paired with someone fast is probably the play. Because I think all of the defensemen we're choosing have no body checking. We're all going with Quinn Hughes type guys. But so if you find someone who's mid at both, Caden Gooley is a great card. Probably one of my favorite cards early so far, but you only got him if you got the deluxe edition. So that Charlie McAvoy that just came out for the Game Breaker event, he's going to cost you about 300,000 coins. That card will fall in price because he's obtainable via sets for free. Obviously, it's a dice roll and you might not get him, but there will be people that can get him no money spent, and I think that's going to bring his price down. So don't go overboard and spend more than 300, but you could get I saw him on the market today for 250. I would give him a shot, 250. There's no difference in him at 250 and Lindros at 250. They're both 85s. The only difference is the card art. So, I think that defensive awareness is very, very important. So, next up, I'm on PS5. Is anyone else using the multi-select or having issues using multi-select for sets? This was broken during early access. If you multi-selected, it would only put one card in, and then the rest of the cards would be invisible and stuck in the set. They don't have a fix for it, so they did a band-aid where they just don't allow, like, if you multi-select, it'll just pick the first one, but the other cards won't go. The fastest way I've found, auto-select, fill the set that you want, then back out all the ones that you don't by hitting square, and then go in and manually put in the cards that you need to put in the set. It sucks, but that's what we got. Ace Lee has been watching for a while. Being a father, I only get to play an hour or two a night, if that. Do you think it's worth trading in cover athletes, like including my Sakic for Kale McCarr? Also free to play. Appreciate all your content. Always a pleasure. Hope all is well with the family. Congratulations on being a dad. Appreciate that, buddy. I would not trade in Sakic for anything. Sakic is low key better than some of the MSPs, one of the better cards, and we could get him for free. So what I would do is this next week, we're probably going to get enough cards via objectives where you get enough of the 82 overall cover athletes. And what I would do is if you only have an hour or two a night, if you don't mind grinding during those hours, go do the cover athlete objectives. You get a free 82 that you can use in sets, and some other objectives that will probably come out next week, and then make one, right? That would be what I'd recommend, but I would not trade in Sakic. What's up, slaves? Was wondering what you think is the best way to set your lineup. What styles of players play best together, and how would you create the most balanced lineup? The problem is that once you get to Division 2, you're playing a different game. I've said this for years. Once you get to Division 2, you cannot do what you've done in Division 3 and below. And I'm being very general with it because it's not like it's this hard line, right? But that's usually the cutoff because once you get into Division 2, you're matching Division 1 players as well. And there's certain players that you just can't use. When it comes to your lineup, offhandedness, especially this year, so lefties on the right, righties on the left. I would like to have one player on my line, probably my centerman, because you don't blow down the wings with your centerman typically. So having a big player in the middle that is slower is okay as long as your wingers are fast and they have high body checking. The body checking stat this year looks to matter more than it ever has, which is a good thing. And we haven't got a truculence card yet. So once we get a truculence card, I think it's going to be super important because if you've been playing the game regularly right now, God, once your opponent gets cycling in the zone, because we're all using little defensemen, it is so hard to knock them off the puck. And with that being said, so if you were looking to like optimize it, a big centerman that could knock people off the puck, and maybe one defenseman that had that, Chris Pronger might damn near be one of the best cards in the game. His cover athlete card is not 83 speed, and he is big and can actually bump people off the puck. So, but again, yeah, like it all depends on the division you're in. If you're in Division 3 and below, use your favorite players and it really won't impact your success in game. Once you get to Division 2, you almost have to use a certain lineup and certain type of card, fast, for example, or with certain abilities like shutdown or truculence when it comes out. All right, we got a big one here. From Elijah, he says, "Hey, Sleeps, more of a comment than a question. I think the negativity has hit a point where it's overblown, and the main issue is just culture shock. The way that Hut has become accustomed to building their team has completely changed, and I don't blame everyone for being being blown away negatively by the change. The shock of not being able to easily obtain the premier cards, so X Factors, Power Icons, Team Builders, and the letdown of the XP path has overshadowed good changes for free-to-play players and free to cards that we've received so far." So I want to be clear on this. Even though I've been very negative of the content team, this I agree with. I do agree that when in 2 years from now, my prediction is we're going to look back on this and being like, it ended up being a good change. However, when you move the goalpost so far away from people that do not spend money on the game, that is not a good change. And what I mean by that is, you legitimately would have to spend $1,000 to get a power-up Igron hologram. You just have to. And the reason for that is because the game does not give you enough tradable 75 and above set fodder player items. And that is because the XP path is so underwhelming. We saw it already. The first good content day, the first good one. The first thing I wanted to see when they released good content is the market exploding in popularity with tradable cards. And sure enough, there was about 5 minutes after the release, there was about 400 Game Breaker cards. And those didn't get added because people completed the moments because those took a couple hours. That was people ripping packs because they saw interesting content. So people are still spending money in the game, which again, you're fair to do that. That's fine if that's your choice. The problem is, I looked this morning and set fodder went up in price because the packs required and the tradable stuff that we can earn is simply not there. That is still a fundamental issue in the game, and that cannot be overblown. That has to be hammered home until EA makes a decision to actually addressed that issue. 75 overall and above cards went from 4,000 to 5,000 per after a huge influx of packs being opened. That means at 5,000 per, by the way, guys, McDavid's card now costs 6 million coins. That is, I think, where the negativity needs to sit. Saying Hut sucks, LOL. Again, I think that might be a little bit overblown simply because we are not accustomed. Anytime they change anything, humans hate change. I don't mean to make this a psychology class, but humans hate change, good or bad. What we're used to, we're comfortable with it. We don't want things to change, but then we say we do because we get tired of it very fast. I do agree that as a free-to-play player, you have as many coins as you want, and I leaned into it. And like I said, I went and bought MSP Matthews, tried him out for 10 games, sold him back. Tried out Lindros, sold him back. In years past, that simply does not happen. In years past, we had so much set fodder that we just threw the cards in untradeable because we weren't impacting our coin base, and we just got the card, and then you're stuck with them in your lineup, right? There's nothing you can do. That is a good change that they are forcing us towards using base cards and actually having value. So I will agree with you on that. But the overblown negativity, where it is negative and where I'm seeing it, is still a bad thing. Next point. That was also a good point. So good comment so far. I'm not sitting in front of my Xbox at the moment, so I could be missing things, but we've received a substantial amount of free cards so far. The initial 85 cover athlete, the 284 wild cards from the B&D set. We've gotten 2 to 3 free X Factors and Power Up Icons each. I don't know how many free 82 overall cover athletes I've gotten, but I have 5 of them in my binder, and another one I can get from Objectives and the Wildcard XP path I can get. That's going to add up to 6 total, which is another free 85 cover athlete through the set. This is what you're missing, brother. You are a deluxe player, and this is the first time that buying the game and spending the extra $50 on the pre-order bonuses was so insanely worth it that all of the standard edition players got crushed. And technically, you didn't spend money in the store. And I know that, like, LOL, being a deluxe edition player isn't make you no money spent. I don't agree with that because, you bought the base version of the game or whatever version of the game that you wanted. There's using the pre-order stuff is fine. But you just described all of the pre-order things. Now imagine you didn't have any of that. Your stance probably changes quite a bit. Like if you started playing on Friday with the standard edition of the game, you don't have the initial cover athlete, so you don't have Makar, whoever you went with. You don't have the 2 wild cards from the B&D set, and you've gotten 2 to 3 free X Factor and Power Up Icons. You got that during the early access XP path, right? So like that's what you got to think. I try to think now more than ever about the casual player that doesn't spend money, that's got the standard edition of the game, and that's who I'm speaking to, and that's where you're seeing the most negativity because that is 80% of the player base. Lastly, the style of Hut team building has simply changed. The packs are a disaster, and it's going to make those premier cards no longer easily obtainable and the ultimate goal. However, with the surplus of coins and the hopefully continuing free rewards from packs, objectives, etc. continuing, I personally think that this means this may be the easiest year to play free-to-play. The difference is that instead of those X Factor, Power Up Icons, and Team Builder cards, our teams will consist of weekly MSPs that will be easier to obtain than ever. I think once we get used to this cycle from another month or so, we'll be much more optimism on building our teams. Anyway, sorry for the rant. Thanks for the content. You've helped a lot with HUD over the last 3 years. Again, I totally agree with this last thing. I think that in a couple months, when we have adjusted to what EA is forcing us to do, I think that we will enjoy it more, right? But that does not change the fact that if the second season of XP, that XP path in 55 days, doesn't come out and have 3x the rewards, even more, then I think that is just simply not going to give the players enough of motivation to continue playing. While I don't think rewards should be the only thing you care about, I've said this a lot, that if you only care about rewards and you don't have fun unless there's good rewards, then what you're looking for is a job. You're looking for something to fill your time that you can chase towards, but that's literally just going to work to get a paycheck. But building your team is part of the fun. But if that's the only thing that you're interested in, go play franchise mode. It's much better this year than years past. But what you're saying about the chase cards, again, I think that McDavid should be almost impossible to obtain quickly, which it is, but it's so insanely impossible that you free-to-play players might not get him for 6 months. I do think that having one Holy Grail card is important. Team builders being just nowhere near a value unless you are dumping everything and you want to, because it's your favorite player. Team builder cards are some of my favorites, man. it rewards collecting and things like that. They're so overwhelmed in value because at least the other cards you can upgrade. You need 2 team builders to get the next higher overall. They've wiped out team builders, even being a thought. And that's a shame. But I do agree with what a lot of you're saying that in a couple months we're going to look differently on it. And it is just a big culture shock. So thank you for the well thought out comment. I appreciate that. I'm free to play. I have a bunch of Icon X Factor covers and 84 Ghoulie just for moments and objectives. Why is everyone so upset? Slow down, enjoy the ride, guys. Again, I just explained in the last comment. Guys, if you think like this, imagine you didn't have any of that from the pre-order bonuses. You'd be cooked. And that's why everyone is upset. Again, I understand from your personal, wow, everyone is bitching and complaining and no one just wants constant negativity. You're not thinking about the players that do not have any of the pre-order content. If you pre-order, you're laughing. Like, you really are. You're laughing. Dylan says, hey, Sleeves, hope all is well. Just wanted to get your insight about the psychology of a HUT player and the misalignment with how EA is approaching it. I don't think this is just me, but I'm mainly no money spent until there is a good value pack that comes out that will help me obtain these chase cards, such as a guaranteed mid-tier icon pack like last year. I grind quite a bit and consider spending money when there is something of value that helps me get over the final hurdle of a long-term goal. This year, the long-term goals being so unobtainable, I just don't see that I'll ever have the desire to spend money, as I won't be near finishing them for months. That's why I don't understand how EA thinks nuking rewards is their best interest. It'll just discourage and disincentivize the community from spending money. Again, all kind of grouped in with what I just talked about earlier. I agree. When you move the goalpost so far away from obtaining them, it doesn't become, oh, I'm close, I'll spend some money. It's, even if I spend $200, I'm a quarter of the way there. So, should I choose NHL 26? I never get a yearly game back to back except this year. Despite gameplay, with HUD starting very poorly, do I need 26 at launch? Why not wait until a holiday sale or mid-season sale? Then I will have more objectives and sets than I know what to do with. Fear of missing out really isn't a thing this year so far. Thanks for your dedication, Sleeves. Is appreciated. 100%, man. I got to be honest with you. Based on YouTube numbers and just the activity in the player base over the years, January is the most active time for NHL, which is insane to think about in a video game that launch isn't. I'm sure launch might have more numbers, but generally January is the most active of the player base, and that's because everyone gets the game for Christmas. It's not a game where you have to chase launch. And I agree with you. Like, based on what the content team did May to September, they did a great job of allowing EA Play players that got the game in September and build a team that you could actually compete with because they kept giving you 95 overall cards. I think that is still going to be the thing. So I wouldn't blame you at all waiting. I wouldn't blame it at all. Gameplay is fun, but if it's, that's what you're saying. So, hey, Sleeves, just wondering if you have any other advice between choosing or going for an X Factor. Probably Kucherov since I have him in fantasy this year, or an Icon Modern since I have 3. Are the choices for Modern specifically worth it? So any of the Power Hologram cards are great. I think that there's a little bit of a hierarchy. I think that Gretzky, Sundin, Lemieux are all fantastic, but really there is a lot of, they're all very, very close that it would be just pick your favorite. Like a Ginla looks good, right? That said, when it comes to the X Factors, God, man, with the state of defensemen, and being able to force passes through the middle again, because I believe, not because of gameplay, I believe it is because of attributes, because during early access, you couldn't force anything through. I think it is attributes. I think Heiskanen is the safest play. If you go and look at your point distribution and your stats, I would be blown away if if a defenseman is not in the top 3 in scoring on your team. And that's because everyone's hucking D-to-D one-timers. But, that's just the nature of this game. Like Ghoulie, I think, is my second highest scorer. I think Heiskanen might be the play. The only thing about Kucherov, while he's amazing, is that there's so many good left-handed wingers that maybe I think that Nylander might be a little bit more impactful. Fox, I wouldn't choose just because there's so many defensemen like him. Would you recommend this Matthews card as your first choice? Makar, quick week 1 cover athletes if you want it. Makar number 1, I think he's a must make. Lindros and then Matthews, then Lindros, Brodeur a distant 4th. I don't think Matthews or Lindros are must makes. I don't think Matthews is particularly worth it. But he was good, just not 300K in value good. I would go and get his base card for 80 or under 100. Lindros was just not what I wanted him to be. I could not score with him. And for anyone that says LOL skill issue, like I'm in Division 2, so it's not like I'm a terrible player. I had a number of chances with him, and he just would never score. Whereas I do the same things with Cole Caulfield's card, or Wyatt Johnston, or Brendamore, who might be the best card in the game right now. Last one. Hey, Slaves, 15-0 to start the year in Rivals, 0 money spent. Only issue I'm having with the game is how unbelievable broken unscrimmed one-timers are from the point. No way that in real life my 85 overall Brodeur is letting that in, especially from a defenseman who is 75 overall with some horrible shooting stats. They need to make the stats make sense. Have a great year. Thanks for the consistent content. You know what's funny? I've noticed, even with decent defensemen, I've noticed the D2D one-timers, while they go in way too much, they're missing the net a lot, and I think that's the slap shot accuracy mattering. So I don't know if that's the case. However, I have stated this from the beginning. I love one-timers. I love not even the D2D one-timers. Man, the ones where you get both cheeks on it from the high face-off dot and it goes in like Ovechkin. God, that's satisfying. And even D2D one-timers when you got guys in front, that should go in. It goes in real life. They do need to dial back the unscreened D2D one-timer. If you watch some replays, it almost looks like the goalie gets tethered back to the middle out of the way when you green a one-timer. But it is easy to defend. I've gotten pretty good at defending it. My strategies video will be out either tomorrow or by the end of the week. And I figured out a pretty good way to defend it. But I agree with you there in terms of that. There was one other comment, sorry, that I wanted to address, and it was about gameplay. And the reason why I wanted to show you guys it is because this is a perfect example of why we will never get universally loved gameplay, because everyone experienced the game in different ways. And just like what I said, when you get to Division 2, you're playing a different game. It is not the same as what you were playing in before. And this is a perfect example as to why. So I want to give Anthony some love here and read his question. Okay. I need to weigh in as a D1 player about my experience as of late. I think the gameplay is truthfully horrendous and forces a style of hockey that is boring and painful to play. Hang on, he gives reasoning for that. So again, this is just kind of the what I was talking about, where you experience different gameplay the higher you get. It becomes more about the video game and less about hockey. I will cycle in the offensive zone for almost a whole period, getting shot after shot blocked and just praying I find a lane to get my green 1T to go in. There is no goal other than that at the top level, with all players dropping 5 in front to make a brick wall. On the other end, I just pray EA decides to make my goalie have an IQ over 5 and save pucks that hit him directly in the chest. Also, I will line up a player with only hopes to get him off the puck, and my Seth Jones can't get it from Cole Caulfield skating down the wing. I understand overalls are lower at the moment, and honestly, it's not the game speed that makes this game bad to me. I am literally at the same time sweating my ass off for nothing in return. Just an overall monstrosity for the first week of the game. Take me back to chase guards from day one, 94 overall base guards, and ultimately just copy and paste the layout of NHL 14 HUT. So again, I have seen overwhelming praise of gameplay, right? And like from all players. And again, Division 1 and 2 represents maybe 5% of the player base, right? Which is why I wanted to highlight this question or this comment. And he's right, because what is happening in Division 1 specifically is everyone's running collapsing protect net, and they're just allowing D2D one-timers and having them blocked. However, what I would recommend, I can't even, like, this is the problem. I can't tell you to play a different way, because when you get so good at the game, you are legitimately just playing the video game and not hockey. This happens in all sports games. When you get good enough, you stop playing the sport and you start playing how you have to do in the video game. And that's just the reality of sports games. But I wanted to highlight this because a lot of players don't experience this, right? When you're playing in Division 3 or whatever, and you're cycling the puck around, which is a wonderful change, in my opinion, for the majority of the player base, because the last 3 years has legitimately been get the fastest skater and just beeline down the boards and huck it through 3 guys that are in position covering the backdoor cross crease, and it just going in, right? I would take what we've got over that. would be my response to that. Unfortunately, the game is going to get figured out, and if everyone's collapsing in front of the net and giving you D to D one-timers, here is what I would recommend. And I've seen this because as I've gotten in Division 2, again, I've seen less tight point, which is my personal opinion, what the majority of the player base should be running, because you are going to get a lot of D to Ds and guys will just force it, right? It's just they're just gonna force it. They're gonna see a guy at the point with the little bubble, and even if you place a guy manually in between them, they will still send it through, and you've got a breakaway. I don't know how many breakaways I've gotten in this game because I play tight point manual defense. And again, I'll show you that in my strategies video. What I have noticed when I've gotten into Division 2 and playing Division 1 players is that when they use collapsing protect net at the point and they are not pressuring you, sit and wait, and you will have a player look at you. Don't fire for the net, fire for the stick, and go for tips. Tips are still effective. And I've scored a lot of goals against guys that are using 5-back collapse. Okay? That would be my recommendation, to adjust to that, because I understand that it is very boring when everyone is bringing all 5 back, especially in this year, but that would be my recommendation. You're going to have to adjust. But unfortunately, it is the reality of video gaming and sports at the top level, man. It's all about winning. And once you get good enough, you get hindered because you can no longer play the way that you would want to and what you would see as a pure hockey video game. But that represents such a small majority of the player base. And again, why you're never going to get an NHL game that is universally loved. I think that it's fun. So for the majority of the player base, that the change is so different. That's what I meant. That's going to do it for this episode of Who Should You Choose? Thank you guys again for watching and all the comments and subscribing and all of that. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.